felt one time, then I fell again. I fell a third time, can't get away from the sin. I keep falling, then I come back to you, crawling, asking forgive me now, I'm ballin', knowing that I let you down, appalling. I don't wanna jeopardize my calling. When I hear your voice no more, I'm halting. I just wanna live in the world you're revolving. I am so imperfect, I'm getting involved in these flesh-tied friends, the blind consulting, pulling me away from the world and revolting. Asking for forgiveness is probably insulting, but you keep taking me back and you're vaulting. Give me chances. You keep giving me chances. You give me chances. You just keep giving me chances. King. Royalty, stand up, brand up, fam up, hand out, no way, hands up, know what, name that, it's mine, claim that, it's time, message, we shine, above all, the decline, the darkness cannot last, the shadow of my past, before I gain knowledge of heritage, I have the bloodline that I share, most powerful out here, the mover of mountains is who I am touting, the richest among us is who I'm the son of, from sundown to sun up, that's how I the come up, position is just mine, the favor in due time, can't have it, man, you lying, the powerless, you trying, enemy beneath me, there's nothing to teach me, the people receive me, cause my God complete me, and my God does keep me, and my God they free me, and my God redeem me, and my God relieve me, I'm king in the million, crown me, I am winning my position, God's giving, God's in it, God's surely king. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff, and I am here, as always, bringing people from around the world to tell stories and see how we all connect and how the whole world is sort of interconnected and we all go through the same experiences as humans and, just trying to bring people together and see what do we have in common and what is it that I have in common with somebody on the other side of the world. Today, I have with me a guest. Her name is Christine Handy. She is a mother and a breast cancer survivor living in Florida. On May 1st, 2016, she released her first book, Walk Beside Me, a fictional description of her illness and long road to recovery. An accomplished model, she began her career at the age of 11 in her hometown of St. Louis. Through her career, she has done campaigns for notable brands like Guess, J. Crew, JCPenney's, Bud Light, Pepsi, Petco, and Target. And that's a lot of brands to do. After her diagnosis, Christine aims to serve as a spokesperson, speaker, and ambassador for cancer-related causes. Her story is featured in prestigious magazines such as American Volkssport Association, Edge, Inner Realm, and The Art of Healing, Kindred Spirit, Outreach, and more. Christine has also been featured in Breast Cancer Advocate and spokesperson on Fox News Radio. Throughout her journey, her family and friends have been a rock and comfort and a blessing. And I said too many ands, but she knew what I was trying to say. Welcome, Christine Handy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I feel like I botched your intro, but
No. And there's so much since then.
It's really good to have you here because I'm sure there's a lot of conversation to be had around you and around. And I think that there are a lot of, being Women's History Month, there are a lot of people dealing with the breast cancer issue. And I think that is very important given the month. Yeah. But before we jump into all of that, tell me, so I read your bio, and that's cool and all, but I want to hear the story. I want to hear the story about you. Oh, we've got time. Actually, we don't have that much time, but we've got time. I want to hear the story because I think that without context, we're just preaching to people. Like we're just, we're just. If I don't tell you that I've been through this, or this is how I came up, this is what it's like to be me, then all I'm doing is preaching to you, and they can hear that anywhere.
Yeah.
But tell us about you. Tell us about how we got here, how we got
How
to
we got
best-selling
here.
author.
Well, I'll take you back.
Okay.
I'll take you back to the younger days of modeling. I started modeling
Okay.
when I was very young, and that became my career. I did it for probably 25 years originally. And that was kind of what I knew. I knew that my beauty was my value in this world. And without my beauty, I didn't really feel like I had any value. So it wasn't necessarily that the modeling industry taught me that. Just in my world, that's kind of what I was taught. And so I eventually got married. I had children, and I lived with what looked like a perfect life on the outside,
Sure.
according to society. But inside, I was felt very lost. Like, what was my measure in this world? What was my value? And I ultimately didn't. So when I started to get sick, I had three major illnesses. One was a colon resection, and when I was 35 years old. Then I had a arm fusion at 41, and then I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And all of those were horrendous and huge on their own. And it was enough just to have one, but to have all three,
Sure.
it really pushed me to a point where I was like, I not only do I not have any value to this world, I'm taking value out. I'm taking value out of my family. I'm taking value out of my friends because I went from being the athlete model in society, this perfect little life, to being sucking everybody's energy dry. And and I didn't want to be that, but I couldn't control the circumstances I was in. And I didn't
Sure.
realize that at the time, that regardless of our circumstances, it's our reaction to them what really matters. And so for me, my reaction was, well, I have to quit, because I had already used the resources and the tokens of help, so to speak, from family and friends. And so by the time I was diagnosed with breast cancer and was facing 28 rounds of chemotherapy and who knew how many surgeries, I felt like I couldn't ask for more help. And part of that was because my self-esteem was so low. And that sense of self-value that I didn't know, right? I didn't carry a big, strong sense of value because for
Yeah.
so long my value was dependent on the external. I lived in this very exchangeable world, right? Like, you do this for me and I'll do this for you. It became very transactional, my life.
Right.
And when you're down to life or death, that transactional world means nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
But I didn't know that until
Yeah.
I was in that point. And once I got to that point, because my self-esteem was so destroyed, I didn't know how to climb my way back up. And so it really took a mountain of women who stood beside me, just the reason I call my book Walk Beside Me, who said, not only will we not forsake you, God will never forsake you. And I said, well, that's real sweet and that's really cute, but I am the one that wakes up every day with cancer, and I'm the one that goes to bed with cancer, and
Yeah.
you can use your resources and your time and your energy and your family and help mine and my family, but I can't get through this. And so it took about a month of them showing up every day and truly saying to me, we weren't kidding. We're going to stand with you for these next 18 months of chemotherapy. And once I realized that they weren't quitting on me, then my self-esteem started to get a little bit better. And ultimately they said, you're going to get through this. And not only are we going to help you, but we're going to stand by your side. And once you do, you now have the obligation to share your story of people standing by each other.
Yeah.
And I took that very seriously because I wouldn't be here without them. And so through all of that pain and trauma, I learned so many different lessons. One, you can't take anything with you. There is no U-Haul behind the hearse.
Right.
And so all those things that I was hoarding, all those material items that were valuable to me, they had no value anymore. And I was happy during those years. I was really happy. I was happy modeling. I was happy in my family. I was happy in my life. But I never really felt joy, and I couldn't figure out why. And it was ultimately me, breaking, right, to a point of losing my life almost,
Yeah.
for me to realize that what joy was serving. And how was I going to live the rest of my life? That was a choice. That was my reaction. And I decided that the only way I was going to live the rest of my life was by sharing my story, because that was serving, that was helping other people, that was guiding. And it wasn't guiding from preaching. It was guiding from true, real life a story of a fairy tale gone bad, and trying to help other people not have to go through that. So that's kind of that's a short version, but
You
and
know,
I've had other
you say something very profound, and I was thinking just when you said that there is a difference between happiness and joy, and
incredible difference.
there's such a difference between it that a person can do things that make them happy yet deplete their joy.
Yes.
And
Right.
there's a whole conversation, but I'm trying to focus on you.
Well, and happiness is typically temporary, right?
Yeah.
Joy is more eternal.
Yeah.
And the only way to seek joy, in my opinion, is to serve. However that looks for you. Everybody serves differently, right?
Yeah.
And for me, by giving my time and my story and being vulnerable about that. And that's the other thing that's so critical. We can all share stories, but if we tell people, the warts of our own selves and
Yeah.
the vulnerability of our own lives that isn't very flattering, that speaks to people.
Yeah.
It's not oh, look how pretty my life was when all these people showed up. That's the sweet part of the story. It's they got in the bathtub with me and cleaned up the vomit and everything else that was coming out of me. These
Right.
women these women were, CEOs of companies, and they were super busy. And it was the darkest moments, the darkest conversations that we had that
Yeah.
I share in the book that really speak to others' lives. So I think there's a very big difference.
Yeah. So when we talk about your book was built as an account of, I guess you said it like a fictional account of your story. So were there parts of your books made up, or did you just change the name so
We
so
changed-
you wouldn't expose the
Yeah,
people?
we changed the names, and
Okay.
it's basically it's a beautiful fictional depiction of my life, and the
Right.
reason I say it's beautiful is because the ending is very, very beautiful. I live, right. I survived the cancer,
Right.
and I have the ability to share it. But throughout the story, there are a lot of very sad moments, and it's also very dark, but a lot of teaching moments. And it's
Right.
also a really interesting book for people who have trauma and illness as how to get through it. And it's also a very hopeful story. So I think that's a benefit of that.
Yeah. I've always found it interesting. Like like I was telling you before, my mother also wrote a book about her account of having to care for my grandmother through her Alzheimer's, and I wonder why she didn't use names, because I need my name to be said, like. It's just like nobody's names in the book. I mean, and it's not, it's just because, you don't want to, you don't want to expose people and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And,
sure. You want to
and
protect people.
but the story, there was no fiction part about the story. Like the story was actually the actual story.
Yeah.
And that's why I was asking you that. Like, was like the parts that you made up, or is
No.
it just, hey, I changed
No.
I changed the names because, people
Yeah, to
don't,
protect
not everybody wants their name in the book.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is I hired an independent contractor who interviewed 28 women who were in the story. And so we took their account of what happened and mine, and we put it into the story. So every email, every text, everything in quote is legitimately what had been said verbatim.
Got you.
So, and that makes it real. And it's become a bestseller, and it's actually being made into a film.
That's super cool.
Which is very cool. It's not
That's super cool.
It's not for my glory. It's for
I know, right? That's super cool. When you don't expect certain things like that to happen, you're just like writing my account out, and then you're like, writing my account of the things that happen in my life out, and then someone's like, "Hey, I want to turn that into a film." You're like, "It's interesting enough." Wow,
Well, I kind of always dreamt that it would, and I knew that it had a bigger purpose than just for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let me ask you let me go back in your life a little bit.
Okay.
I want to ask you some questions for the younger people who are interested in getting into the modeling thing, because we live in the year of 2020 and
Yeah.
2021. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
We're stuck.
I need to be out of 2020. We live in the year of 2021.
Thank God.
And a model today is not what a model used to be.
So different.
But, what's the what's the life like as a young person being in that particular industry? Is it as daunting or stressful as the TV makes it out to be?
It is stressful. It wasn't stressful in a way that many films make it out to be, at least from my experience.
Okay.
Everybody experiences something different. I didn't see a lot of drugs. I didn't see a
Right.
lot of partying in the field that I was in. I was a catalog model. I worked for a modeling agency. Okay, that's first and foremost. Back then, you have to have an agent, and within the agency, you have a booker, and your booker basically submits you for jobs.
Right.
I got booked a lot because I showed up on time. My hair was, the color that it was supposed to look like. It was the cut it was supposed to look like. And I worked really hard. We had models that would come, hungover and late and be prima donnas, and they weren't booked a lot. They didn't get a lot of jobs. And so my career lasted because I developed a reputation. And I think that's true of all industries. Um, but of course, mine had different challenges, right? We couldn't have any scars. We had to look exactly like our comp cards. And if we didn't, I mean, we would get weighed in at the modeling agency. And so there was a lot of physical pressure. There was obviously a lot of pressure on the external, which ultimately for me led to a very transactional life.
Right.
And I worked in the industry for so long that was all I knew. I didn't go from working as a model to a desk job to
Right.
anything else. Ultimately, until I got cancer, I eventually started to be a writer, and I went back to school, and I'm getting my master's degree in creative writing, and
Right.
I and so there's other things that I'm doing now, but for so long my identity was wrapped up into that. And I think that as a working model, and I even lived in the elite modeling agency in Barcelona, and I still didn't see that kind of recklessness with models.
Right.
We worked hard, and people imagine this modeling world as, oh, you whatever you model with the clothes, you get to keep them, and you get to go on all these private planes and all this stuff, and that's just not true.
Right.
We filled out a voucher of how many hours we worked, and we gave it to our agency, and the client paid us, and it was kind of a normal job.
Right. It being a model, and you mentioned this, but I want you to. I want to. I want to go into a little bit deeper. You mentioned about your external.
Yeah.
Do you think that because of the industry, you judge your external as the rest of your life, like as if the rest of your life is based on what you look like, or because I know if if you got into one particular business and everything is focused on that one thing,
Hyper focus.
did that apply to the rest of your life
Of
then? Like
course.
you,
Yes.
you
Absolutely. Yes. I was, even when I wasn't working, I was putting on the perfect makeup, and I was walking
yeah,
out the door with a messy outfit, but I'd spent 30 minutes on the messy outfit, right? Like it was the perfectly messy outfit. Made to look very casual and chic, but I'd spent 30 minutes on it, right?
right,
So you kind of live the part outside of working hours. And I hung out with those people. I mean, my best
right,
friends were other models. And so, we were a group, and so that's what we talked about. The voices that we heard in our head were from other models and about other jobs. I mean, there are some crazy stories. I had a girl who I was modeling with, and I went to a job one day, and she looked a lot thinner, and I hadn't seen her in a while. She had two ribs taken out so that her waist would be thinner. So there were
wow,
people that did extreme measures to get more and more work. Um, and that happened. I think the bigger question was, did it extend out through my whole life? Absolutely. When
yeah,
I was diagnosed with cancer and I was losing my hair, like I said, I was like, well, no, I can't have that. I can't. That's not who I am. I can't lose my hair. This isn't happening to me. It was all this
right,
denial, right?
right,
Because I thought I was exempt maybe from that, which nobody is. And so it was a harsh reality to go
yeah,
from, that persona that I had put on myself and society had, to the reality of life is hard and you're going to go through trauma and things happen and you're going to
Right.
start up, which is ultimately what happened to me. And it was the unacceptance of it which made me want to quit. But ultimately, it was the acceptance of it that I fought for my life.
Mm.
It's the reaction. It's the reactions we go through.
Yeah. It's such a powerful story.
Yeah.
Well, the process is always the question. The process of learning that you have cancer
Yeah.
to recovery. And I know there is a medical process of it.
Right.
And the medical process is probably different for everyone,
Yes.
and probably a lot of technical terms that we don't know to understand. But the emotional process
Yeah.
is, tell me about that. The emotional process from learning that you have cancer, and having to go through it. Now I know you had a great support group that wouldn't give
Right.
up on you.
Right. That helped.
Yeah, but tell me about, for you emotionally, like what did it feel like to start this process coming from, just where you're from, and, what you're doing for a living, and now all of a sudden you have to do something completely different. Like.
Yeah, my world was rocked, and it wasn't just because of losing what I look like. My world was rocked because I was 41 years old. I have no family history of cancer. None of my contemporaries had ever had cancer. And I felt like, why me? And it was almost this instant pity session and pride and self-esteem issue. It wasn't like, okay, we got this and we're going to fight for this. And this is, this is a teaching moment for all the people that are going to watch you. It was not that. It was quite
Right.
literally the opposite.
Right.
And after I let my kind of ego go dissolve, and I finally admitted that what other people and their opinions of me and their value of me didn't matter. When I finally came to that realization, my pride and ego dissipated. My life changed a lot. And I was able to kind of step into a different space of how I was going to live my life. And so the first couple of months of chemotherapy were very different than the last several months, because I started to feel pride in myself. And part of the pride in myself was I was showing up for chemo and it was hard. And so being that kind of badass for myself versus relying on other people to tell me, oh, you look pretty today. Those are completely different parts of the self, right?
Yeah.
And so I became more dependent on myself versus somebody else's opinion.
Yeah.
And I've carried that all the way through, which is why I think I'm such a good model for somebody going through pain and trauma, because I I think I'm good at saying, if you can get to this point of self-discovery, everything else doesn't matter. The things, the stuff, the bags, the cars, the street you live on, the hair, you know, the pretense, the transactions, it doesn't matter. You know? But it takes a lot of gut and grace and a lot of pain to go through that to get to that place. But again, I know people who've had cancer and who've gone completely the opposite way and are
Yeah.
super angry and bitter and, don't really get out much. They just can't handle it. And that's not
Yeah.
how I reacted.
What role? What role did faith? Because I heard you mention it earlier.
Yeah.
I can take you down this direction on the interview. What role did faith play?
Oh, it was huge.
What role did it play before cancer,
Yeah.
in your earlier life versus what it played after?
So I was raised Catholic, and when I got to college, I kind of was confused about the Catholicism and faith. And so I kind of left. I always believed in God, but I kind of left it aside. I didn't make it a priority. And
Right.
interestingly enough, the very women that stood by my side during cancer are the very women that kept asking me to go to Bible studies. And I kept saying, I'm going to a yoga class. I'm busy. I need to work out. And so I was putting my exercise and my facade before my faith.
Mm,
And so when I was diagnosed with cancer, I wasn't out there working out. I wasn't going to yoga class. I had a
right.
lot of time for Bible studies, right? And so they were bringing the Bible studies to me.
Wow.
Um, and so my faith shifted and my priorities shifted and my focus shifted. And when that focus shifted to faith, my self esteem was enriched and my sense of self love was enriched, right? Because I was the daughter of the Most High.
Right.
And I never knew that before.
Mm,
And so it was kind of a tea tree dish of
mm-hmm.
an experiment, right? And I took all of that they were teaching me and I took it very seriously. And I took their teachings and I went even further and I sunk into the Bible and I started reading.
Mm,
And my faith completely changed my life.
mm.
And I hope my sons.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Women often, I think one of the most powerful things that you have said to us is about your group of women that helped you, that helped you sort of, come.
Yeah.
How did you come about that? Like how because I think, having good relationships with a group of women for women or even when you're a man of other
Yeah.
men is super important.
Yeah.
The biggest
Critical.
problem I think is picking the wrong people to be in that circle.
Absolutely.
How did you come across a circle of people that were so strong to help you pull through something like cancer?
Well, I think part of it was luck for me.
Yeah,
And,
always.
and but I also think that in order to have good friends, you have to be a good friend.
Mm,
And so my friends, when I was going through that, said, "Listen, you've shown up for us for the past 15, 20 years."
mm,
I didn't value my time doing that as very
mm-hmm,
high. I kind of dismissed my own value in those friendships. And
mm,
I would say to them, "No, no, you're the one that are showing up for me." And they go, "No, you showed up for us." And so I think that's one of the things you can do is show up for other people.
mm-hmm,
And and the other thing is you have to understand how important women in your life are.
mm-hmm.
If you don't realize that, you won't put the time and effort into it. But
Right.
quite literally, uniting women changes and saves lives.
Mm-hmm,
And one of the reasons why I wrote the book was because I think the media, TV, movies portray women as really catty and fighting and tearing each other down. I mean, just put on Bravo, right?
right. Right. Absolutely.
And I think that's such a bad message because that's not what happened in my life.
Mm-hmm,
And I think by showing what real true friendships look like, I
mm-hmm,
think I think people look at that and go, I can have this.
mm-hmm,
And they say, "Oh, how can I have this?" Well, I can be a friend.
mm-hmm,
And then they can see, right, that snowball effect. Okay, well, being a good friend keeps the friends, right?
mm-hmm.
And then when there's times of trouble, those friends show up. Why? Because you've shown up for them. So it's not to say that you have to put in a certain amount of time as a measure. It's just about send somebody a text, give somebody a call,
Mm-hmm.
FaceTime somebody, let them know that you care. Because that's the
Right.
most important thing, especially right now during COVID and all this isolation. Suicide rate is up 200%.
Mm-hmm.
And people
That's
need people.
insane.
People
Yeah.
need people. It's not my opinion, it's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was getting cut open time after time, surgery after surgery, both on my breast and on my arm, I my doctor said to me, he said, "You have to negate all this negative, painful processes that are going outside of your body and inside your body.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to negate that is by gentle touch,
Mm-hmm.
massage hugs, somebody rubbing my leg." And that's true of all of us who are going through
Mm.
trauma. And we're all right now, there's a lot of trauma going around.
Yeah.
And so during this isolation, we need to be hugging and touching, right? People. Unfortunately, it's a what the media is portraying is not what we're meant to be doing.
Right. That's good. That's a great answer. Very biblical. Proverbs 18:24. He desired friends must show himself friendly.
I love that. Amen.
Yeah, there is, there obviously there's a lot more I could just drill down and ask you.
Right.
But unfortunately, here and how time is limited, I
Yeah.
want to ask you a question I ask a lot here. I think I ask everyone just to know. I think one day I'm going to come up with a compilation of everyone's answers to this question. It's going to be really
Okay. Write a book about it.
cool. So, if there were one thing in the world that you could change, right? If God was like, you know what? I'm going to do the thing that Morgan Freeman did with Jim Carrey in the movie.
Yeah.
But you can only change one thing about the world. What would be the one thing about the world that you would change?
I think physical pain is a barrier. I think that when people are in constant physical pain, they want to it's too hard. They want to take their life. And so I think that if you could wipe out physical pain, we could probably work more on emotionally helping other people. And that would be a good start.
Now, see, that's a different answer.
Yeah.
That's a different answer. Like nobody has ever said that before. That's
Yeah.
a new one. A lot of people say like things like kindness or empathy or and that's super cool. I appreciate that. Before we go, I want to get from you places where people can contact you, and
Yeah. Thank you.
so I know you do. I know you do some public speaking things. Probably haven't done much in the last year, like
Less
the
now.
rest of us. How do people contact you to purchase your book or just get in contact with you?
So the best place to go to my website, christinehandy.com. I also am, I do a lot of work on Instagram. I do a lot of posting on, encouragement for empowerment. And my posts are pretty real and raw. So a lot of people gravitate towards that social media outlet. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I'm going to start doing more speaking, hopefully coming up. And the film is called Willow, the feature film. When it ultimately gets filmed, to look for that. And of course, my book is sold everywhere.
That's
Just
cool.
Google my name and it comes up.
You're I'm sorry, I'm about to change the whole subject.
Sure.
Because you just talked about starting to speak soon. I know, what's pandemic life in Florida?
It's not so bad.
Yeah.
It's not so bad. The weather's great and most things are open and people are careful. They wear their masks and they're respectful. Okay. And so it's not been so bad. And I spend a lot of time outside just because I love to.
Okay.
So you don't feel kind of prisoner-like, I think, that you do in other states.
Right. Are you more northern, central, or southern?
I'm in Miami, so very south.
Are you a southern Florida? You're
Yeah.
South Florida.
Yeah, I'm South
You're
Florida.
the fun part.
I like to know that the fun's out there. I don't participate, but I know that I
Right.
can if I want to, which is never. I'm a very serious intellect. Like I'm in school. I'm getting my master's degree at Harvard, and
Yeah.
my mission is to change women's lives. And so
Right.
I got a lot of work to do. I don't have time to go out and club it in Miami.
Right.
That's not in my mission statement.
I feel you. I totally understand you. Listen, it was really great to have you here. It was a really great conversation. I really appreciate just being able to hear you, hear your heart, hear your story and your mission. And I think that a lot of people will appreciate hearing it. And I hope I really hope you success in what you're doing in the future.
Thank you. All right, wonderful. Nice to meet you. The more we
too.
share, the more we help other people. So
That is perfect. Exactly what the Elevation
Why we do it.
Podcast
Yeah.
is about. Thank you so much. This has been the Elevation Podcast. My name is Shawn Riff-Raff. We are here every Tuesday at 7:30, just to sit here and talk to people like Christine. And that was Christine Handy. You guys have a great one. Thank you. Peace out.